In this lesson, we'll talk about experimental versus theoretical. We'll go over some vocabulary, and then we'll look at some examples. Theoretical probability is the number of possible favorable outcomes over the total number of outcomes. For example, in the roll of a number cube, the theoretical probability of rolling a 5 is 1/6 because there is one side that is the favorable outcome of 5 out of the 6 sides. So that would be that probability of 1/6. The experimental probability, a certain number of trials occurs. The experimental probability is the number of times the indicated outcome occurs over the total number of outcomes. In an experimental probability, you will see them actually performing the experiment and seeing how many times that thing happens. Or maybe it's a survey and you're surveying a bunch of people and you're seeing how many times they choose a certain outcome. For example, someone rolls a number cube 100 times and they roll a 5 75 of those times. So the experimental probability of getting a 5 is actually 75 out of 100. They're actually performing the experiment of rolling the number cube and keeping track of how many times they're getting that favorable outcome over the total number of trials. Let's look at another example. The table below shows the results of randomly selecting a letter from the word rhombus 80 times. And this is called a frequency table. You can see that the R, they picked that 15 times. The U, they picked 18 times. The S, they picked 12 times. The theoretical probability of drawing an S is 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. There are 7 letters in rhombus, and there's only one that's S. So in theory, you would think you would pick it 1 out of every 7 times. But what actually happens is out of 80 times, the probability of drawing an S was 12 out of 80 because they drew it 12 out of the 80 times. I can reduce the 12 80s by going to alpha y equals and choose number 1. And I can see that it's 3/20. But I still don't know for sure if the theoretical probability is different than the experimental probability. So I can change it into a decimal by taking 1/7 for the theoretical probability and then 3 divided by 20 for the experimental probability. And you can see that the experimental probability is just slightly more than the theoretical probability. And again, the theoretical probability is just based on the number of outcomes, how many of them are the favorable outcome. The experimental probability is out of the number of times that you actually performed the event, how many times did that favorable outcome occur? That's the difference between experimental probability and theoretical.